Well, this is a topic that I know I spend a lot of time on it. I like to talk about it, but it's really important. And the reason we're going to cover again this topic so quickly after having talked about it, I think just 2 weeks ago, is because there was an unbelievable, and I'm shocked that they actually followed through and held a hearing. But the Illinois State Senate finally held a hearing on Monday about energy. And now I think that their intent was to essentially talk to a number of the stakeholders in energy in the state of Illinois about the impact of Trump's one big beautiful bill on their particular facet of the energy sector. I actually think it backfired on them. If you listened to the entire 3 hours of hearing, I think what you'll find is that our energy problems right now stem from the bad policies coming out of the Pritzker administration. I think that's what you'll find. But there was a lot of other really informative portions of this hearing. Well, we had on the Republican side, minority spokesperson on the Energy and Public Utilities Committee in the Illinois Senate is Terri Bryant. Terri Bryant I start out in the House. I served with her. It's for a couple of years, and actually 4 years. And then she's moved on over to the Senate. She is from Southern Illinois, and she's really smart and savvy about this issue. It's something that she understands quite differently maybe than people up here because they're in the Ameren territory. And we're going to get a little bit more into some other issues with Terri, too, that we're interested in, mainly drugs that we find in the prisons, Madigan's sentencing coming up. Those are all very interesting topics to both of us. So, Terri, thanks a lot for joining me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
I had a little glitch. Okay. And I love your, I'm going to call it your walk-up music. That was pretty good music.
Oh, thank you. You're also the assistant Republican leader, so good job getting into leadership in the Senate. That's awesome.
Thank you. I think it's, like you, I'm not easily pushed around. So I think it was, I believe it was an excellent and wise choice by Leader Curran.
Yes, it was. I agree. So I thought one of the more important things, because everybody assumes sort of that we're an energy export, and in the PJM territory, they did say that, yeah, we do export energy. And it usually goes to other states and stuff like that. We export our energy, but that is not true in Ameren. And I just want to play this clip. This is Matt Tomik, Tomc. He was with Ameren, and here's what he said. It's just a short clip, but take a listen.
Strongly in the category of an importer downstate Illinois. I talked to my team the other day. 80% of our power needs are met through importation into our zone at this point in time. And I think, Senator, a lot of that is driven, by retirements of facilities that we've seen in recent years. A lot of older generating units, fossil fuel predominantly. Downstate Southern Illinois was a coal-producing part of the country, right? And so as those plants have retired, you've seen a gap emerge and some tight supply situation emerge. Now, investments made to the transmission system.
Okay, so we went on to another topic there. But Terri, when you heard that, did you know that Ameren territory imports 80% of its energy?
Yeah. Well, we were beginning to suspect that. That was the first time that I actually heard some numbers used, and it was really kind of especially interesting to me to know those numbers, but to also know I represent an area now that has massive commercial solar facilities. So 1,500 acres in one plot, and then next to it another 1,500. One place has basically leases for 4,500 acres of solar, and that solar energy is actually being exported to Missouri. So while solar is being exported for whatever reason and taking up outstanding farmland, we're actually importing the reliable, affordable baseload energy that we need. And that's creating supply and demand issues, not just in Southern Illinois, but I just got back from Canada, where the Midwest legislators were meeting from both the U.S. and Canada And everybody is complaining about it, whether it's PJM or whether it's MISO, whether it's the U.S. or Canada. So it's a huge problem all over.
So a lot of the discussion also did with solar, because a number of the solar business folks, the people who sell solar, residential, rooftop, some smaller commercial solar projects, they were all complaining because when the tax credits go away, they've already projected that they're going to lose 20% of their business. They have people pulling out of contracts. They're laying off 20% of their workforce to match that reduction in contracts going forward. And I got to tell you, though, CEJA, the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act, it really seems to be more about jobs than it is about anything. I want to, before we go further, I want to play this clip. This is my favorite clip of all of them. It's Steve Gorham, which we're going to hear later in this program too, because he was, well, we'll talk about that in a minute, but this is his clip about CEJA, calling it just a jobs program. He really puts it into perspective.
Another example, Tesla. Elon Musk's Tesla is a leading provider of solar systems and grid-scale batteries. But they just built the Colossus XAI supercomputer facility in Memphis, Tennessee, and they put in 35 on-site gas turbines to power it. They didn't use solar and they didn't use batteries. And Colossus has been built and expanded to 200,000 graphics processing units. It was built in only 6 months. But this is an example of what is going on around the country. So what you do with solar in Illinois is really going to have zero effect. Unless it's just a jobs program, that's fine. But it's probably going to raise your power rates.
When you heard that, what was your reaction?
Well, Jeannie, the issue is there's very few jobs that solar creates. Mm-hmm. There are some jobs when they're putting in these commercial solar sites. There are a few jobs, 1 or 2 or 3 maybe, that have to monitor the solar facility. I'll give you an example in Baldwin, Illinois, which is in Randolph County, deep southern Illinois. Baldwin Power Plant was scheduled to close in 2025. They've been given 2 extra years. They're going to take about 100 employees from there, and it'll come down to about 12 in the end. So the jobs that are being performed are those jobs where someone does put it on your house, or where they're manufacturing some solar panels, but we're not even manufacturing the solar panels in the U.S. It's pie in the sky. Yep. So solar and wind can't stand on its own weight. It only stands because of the subsidies. And to your point a little bit earlier, which was this committee was really about bashing the one big beautiful bill, but I don't think we gave them the opportunity, meaning having Steve on there and myself and a couple other Republicans that chimed in, I don't think that the Democrats were able to accomplish what they wanted to accomplish, and that was to say bad Trump and good solar. I just don't think it worked because it doesn't stand on its own weight.
Yes, even the environmentalists that were on this, I think Sarah Walkus is one of them. There was another lady, and all they said was essentially like, without the credits, we can't do solar. So if mm-hmm. your product depends on credits from the taxpayers, that you don't really have a product that's saleable. If your business model depends on government subsidies, you don't really run a for-profit business.
Well, that's right. And what I'd hoped would have talked a little more about if it was a legitimate hearing, would have been the fact that with the environmentalists taking coal offline, and now even in 2035, the peaker plants have to come offline. So we're talking about really affordable, clean energy in natural gas, evidenced by what Steve said with the facility in, I think it's Memphis, mm-hmm. Tennessee. We are going to be in a position where China and the U.S. are going to be vying for who is the leader moving forward when it comes to data centers and AI. We cannot be a leader in the world if we're going to be depending on wind and solar, because it's not reliable baseload energy. We need nuclear, natural gas, and some coal until we're able to move in, give us some time to get some nuclear facilities or additional natural gas plants online. But with the Trump administration's plan to bring to nearshore some manufacturing and this adjustment of AI, we're going to have a terrible supply and demand issue in the very, very near future. We're already starting to see it now.
So the market monitor for PJM territory, that Joe Bowring, he was very good. And then you also had ComEd, who was there talking about it. And essentially, though, anybody who was really at that expert level, they all made mention that the data centers need to bring their own energy with them. They are the ones who are being they're sucking off the energy off the thing. There's no way to supply them with the electricity that they need. They must bring their own energy. They were adamant about it. They have to have their own facility with them. And that's why Elon Musk is building natural gas, not solar.
Yeah, because it's affordable and it is clean and it's reliable. You're going to have it 24/7.
Yeah.
When I left the conference in Canada, I went the following week to Boston, and one of the largest conversations there really had to do with PJM. PJM is significant in Illinois, even though I live in the MISO region. PJM is Chicago. Uh-huh. And while we've been shouting for 2 years, 3 years now about what's happening in the MISO region, no one in the PJM area really cared because Chicago was getting the energy they needed. Well, now you have all these data centers going online in Virginia. So Maryland, who is spending hundreds of millions, even into the billions of dollars on transmission lines, expecting that they're going to have affordable energy coming off of the PJM grid, are now basically being told that these data centers are taking up most of the energy. So Maryland is calling Virginia the energy sucker of the world. So it is. I think the first time in Chicago that someone goes to turn on their lights and they don't come on, or we're in one of these 100-degree days or below zero days in the winter, and someone's heat goes out or their air goes out. Now, still we have some hot summer still to come. Then all of a sudden, the folks in Chicago are going to be running around with their hair on fire, yelling that the sky is falling, when we've been telling them this for several years now.
Yeah, I think it's all going to come to a head, and there's no way that they're actually going to shut down natural gas in the state of Illinois. Nobody is retrofitting their house at the cost of $50,000 to electrify their dryer, their stove, their heating. Nobody's doing that. These guys are insane. Hey, Terry, would it be okay if we hold you over just a really short break?
Yeah.
And I want to get to the DOC issue. Okay, this is The Real Story. We'll be right back.
You're listening to The Real Story with your host, Jeannie Ives.
All right, we're right back here with State Senator, Illinois Republican Terri Bryant. And Terry and I served together for a few years down there, and we both served under Mike Madigan. And guess what? August 8th, in case you missed it, the judge denied ex-Speaker Madigan's request to remain out of prison during his appeal. He is sentenced to 7.5 years, and he is supposed to report to prison on October 13th. I actually never thought that this day would come, but it looks like it's going to be here, and it looks like he's going to prison.
Yeah, who would have thought it just several years ago?
Mm-hmm.
I remember people saying here, "Oh, he'll never do prison time," and I'm like, well, I think he will. If you remember, just a few years ago, the Speaker of the House in New York, I think they investigated him for well over 3 years, and he got 20 years in prison. And when it's federal time, I believe you have to do 85% of the time. And I would not expect, in his case, that you would see any kind of relief coming from the Trump administration on a pardon or a commutation of a sentence. So I think he's going to jail, and I think he's going to do 85% of that.
Yeah, well, that's great. I mean, he's an old man, and he could end up not coming out. Who knows? That's for God to decide, not us, obviously. Yep. But you know what? He's not typically going to probably a jail that we in Illinois. It's going to be what, Club Fed?
Yeah, probably. I mean, if he goes to one in Illinois, it would be like the one that's in. There's two prisons in Marion. There's the one that everybody knows of that was the Supermax. It's now a medium. But there's also the one that Pete Rose went to in the Marion area. I think it's still open. I don't really keep track of the federal facilities the way I do the Illinois Department of Corrections. But I don't care who you are or where you go. Prison is not a nice place to be.
Well, you would know not because you've been there, but because you have been there, because you were there.
Yeah.
You worked for the prison system before you became a state rep, so you're very familiar with the prison systems. And you wanted to talk tonight about the drug issues in the prisons. And why don't you just tell us a little bit more about that? I
Sure.
don't really know what's going on, so I'm appreciative of your expertise.
Well, thank you. I'm retired after 20 years in the Department of Corrections. I was an internal and external auditor, which means I did inspections besides my regular job with corrections.
Mm-hmm.
So I speak the language, and sometimes the language can get convoluted with people. The ones that run the Department of Corrections like to spin everybody in all directions, and fortunately, they're not able to do that with me. But what we've seen is in almost every facility in Illinois, they have drug exposures going on. Now, when I retired from corrections 12 years ago, you'd maybe see a little marijuana here or there. You would never see cocaine, heroin, ecstasy. Right now, we're seeing massive amounts of fentanyl. What the department is trying to do is say that they can't. They test the drugs when, like at Menard, for instance, 12 staff went out on an exposure, undetermined drug origin. Well, that's because it's K2. And K2 is made up of about 5 different drugs. The inmate chemists, or the chemists on the street that sell to the inmates, if you're able to determine what to test for in those drugs, they just change the components a little bit. So I started investigating myself. I went to 10 different institutions, all the way from deep southern Illinois, where I am, up to Dixon, over to Pontiac, all the way to Lawrence. We visited, like I said, 10 different institutions. And then we started doing some FOIAs. Of course, the Department of Corrections refuses the FOIAs, so we had to appeal to the Attorney General's office for information. We've been able to determine just in 24 and 25, 9 inmate deaths of fentanyl alone. So I asked my staff to concentrate on fentanyl because the department can't argue whether that drug was there or not. We have a mother of an offender who has offered to give us a death certificate so we can prove that it was fentanyl. But I've been working with some local coroners and getting as much documentation as we have. There's no way to hide from this, and the Department of Corrections is covering it up in a massive cover-up.
Has this been a problem once Pritzker got in office, or has this always been a problem, or has the problem gotten worse?
Well, there's been some amount of it always. Like I said, it was usually something like a little bit of marijuana. Maybe once in a while, some cocaine would be smuggled in. That's all very serious. But what we're seeing right now is one offender, when I went to Dixon, because they had all the windows open trying to clean everything out, and one offender whispered to me, "You should come in here about 6 o'clock in the evening. It looks like purple haze in here." So now I'm getting letters from offender families, who's saying that their loved ones are saying, "Please get me out of here because I can't live in here with the cellie that I have." So their cellmate is smoking dope all day, every day, and then it causes other offenders to get exposed. So there is a mindset in Illinois where there's not as much people don't seem to be as concerned if it's a staff member. They chose the job, they get paid a lot of money, and so forth. I disagree with that.
Yep.
But on the other hand, if you are someone who really cares about the people who are being given into the stewardship of the state of Illinois, you care about their lives. They're dying all over the state, and no one is saying a word about it. Even the offender organizations, the ones that are supposed to be, they're safeguards, the ones that are supposed to come and say, "Hey, you can't treat these inmates like this," they're ignoring it as well. So I've had a huge push to try to electronically scan mail because there's a lot of these drugs going in through the mail. We know that it's happening. Of course, there is inmate families. There are bad staff, just like any business. You can have good staff, bad staff. There's some staff that are bringing them in. There's volunteers, but we attack each thing one at a time and get this stopped. Right now, it's the electronic scanning of mail. DOC doesn't want to do it. Offender organizations don't want anyone to do it, and it would stop a huge part of the drugs that are inside the facilities. And the Pritzker administration absolutely does not want to do it. They seem to have the most incompetent, higher-level staff that I've seen in my 30 years of being involved with the Department of Corrections.
Well, I just think their staff overall is very arrogant as well. So do you think that they're having this problem down in the Supermax in El Salvador?
No, I don't think so.
No. I think maybe we could learn something from them.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah. No, I really appreciate you bringing this topic up because it's not something that I've covered before, and it's important. I mean, taxpayers beware, right? Because, somebody dies fentanyl overdose just from exposure, taxpayers could be on the hook for a lawsuit.
Oh, they're already on the hook right now because I know some inmates are going to sue for depraved indifference.
Yeah.
Because the agency knows they're doing very little to curb this. And I honestly don't want the taxpayers to be on the hook for it, but they are on the hook for it because we have a responsibility as the stewards of them while they're incarcerated. We have to make sure that they're safe. And right now, people are not safe in the Illinois Department of Corrections due to all of the all of these drug exposures.
Well, Terri, we got to leave it right there. I've got a hard break.
Okay.
I want to thank you so much for joining me on The Real Story. Terri Bryant, State Senator, Southern Illinois.
My pleasure.
Thank you. We'll be right back.